Hi, hello and welcome to another episode of course,
China.
My name is Fernando and this is
Ziv.
And today we are with a very, very important guest in our podcast. So Ziv, why don't you tell us something about our guest?
Yeah, today we have Peleg Lewi, the Israeli Consul General to Guangzhou. Peleg has been serving the country for 26 years, right?
Yep.
He's been posted in Angola, Colombia, Paraguay, France, Hungary, Japan, and now in China. We're going to have a lot of interesting topics to talk about. And thank you for being here, Peleg.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
No, thank you very much. And I'm very excited to have learned that you've been in Colombia. So there's a few more questions that I can ask.
Right. we do the Spanish version right after we finish the English version. Right. So Peleg, let's start from the beginning. Mm-hmm. We just were talking a little bit before about how you start being, like you said, serving your country through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, right?
Yeah.
How did you start?
So basically, I did my studies. I studied political science and international law, but I had no idea what I'm going to do with my life. In Israel at the time, 28 years ago, to be a diplomat was very respectful, very think about the profession. And in Israel, since we really don't, we have no tradition of families that were ambassadors before, like in other countries. So basically, it's a public content. You apply for it. We don't see diplomat as a profession. So you can apply being a doctor, a dentist, a chemist.
Doesn't matter what you studied.
It doesn't matter at all. Anyone can apply.
What's the requirement? Like you gotta have a diploma. You
need to have a diploma. That's it.
Okay. All right.
A diploma and to speak a little bit of English, of course.
And more languages is a bonus.
It's a bonus, but it's a bonus. And in Israel, a lot of people speak another language.
And you do speak. What do you speak?
I spoke when I was accepted to Spanish because it's my mother tongue, some English, and French, and Hebrew. Of course.
So that's pretty good.
Is there an age, a minimum age, for you to enter the foreign affairs service?
There, it's not allowed to have age restrictions. But you need to have a degree. So in Israel, we start studying at 21, 22.
Okay.
So I was the youngest in my course. I was 25 when I entered. So there is no restriction. And nowadays, a lot of people are doing it as a second career option. Like they finish, making money, businessmen, and then they want to contribute to the country, and they want to do something more significant. So they enter the ministry. It's a process of exams, personality, and other tests, and then you go into a course which is 8 months.
8 months.
8 months. It takes 8 months. And basically, you study what is, to know your country a little bit, some techniques, like how to speak on podcast. And no, really, in my time, there wasn't any podcasts, of course.
Radio.
But nowadays, you need to, radio, TV. Nowadays, it's more Twitter and stuff like that. Of course, administrative affairs. And when you finish, you are kicked out from the country to your first posting.
Right away?
Right away.
Wow. Okay. So what brings a person to want to do that? Like you said a little bit, but for you at that time, you said you didn't know what to do.
I didn't know what to do, to tell the truth. And that was, I was applying to universities to do my master's degree and not being accepted. And seeing, I knew what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to go to my family business, to the family business. And
what was it?
Buying stuff from China.
And we're sitting here now. Yeah.
So my grandfather, my uncles used to come to the Canton Fair back in the 80s and the 90s.
For that, we like to say, of course, China.
Of course, China. Yeah. So this is the karma. This is life. 25 years later, I come back here, but as a diplomat, not as a buyer.
They didn't want to be in business.
I didn't want to be in business.
Right.
No,
Okay.
I didn't want to be in business.
How is the destination chosen? Okay. Do you have any saying or?
Yeah. One of the problems of our ministry is that we are being too democratic. So your first posting you cannot choose.
Okay.
But otherwise you have to apply for a job. They cannot force you to leave. It's very different from other ministries. You have once a year a list of posting, what's going to be open next summer, and you apply. whether
What is
you're
the length of service in one particular location?
we have a
more or less?
maximum of 6 years abroad. That's it. You can do 4 years in one place and then come back, or do 3 and 3. Usually you go from a hardship post to a better post on the second half. But it's very different from other countries because there are a lot of diplomats that can be 10, 12 years abroad. We prefer, not to get, to stay in touch with Israel, not to forget from where you come, the hardships that you have in Israel, and not to get too used to have a nice life as a diplomat.
So yeah, you said before that you have 5-6 maximum years, right,
Yes.
outside, and also you have to have 2 years in
In
Israel.
Israel,
between.
that's the minimum.
You
That's the minimum.
cannot
Okay.
just right away go to another place,
No,
right?
no.
So 2 years break,
Absolutely.
which makes
And
sense,
What kind of activities do you do when you go back to Israel?
You work in the ministry.
Coordinating other people?
No,
or-
depends on your job. My last work, for example, my last job was amazing. I worked in Mashav. Mashav is the international cooperation and aid agency of Israel, like USAID. So it was amazing. I was working mostly in Africa and in East Asia to provide assistance and to provide cooperation. So you can choose whatever you want to do in the ministry. There are people who prefer to be in headquarters, to have their career over there. There are people like me that I became a diplomat to be abroad, not to be.
So you did want to go
headquarters.
abroad.
I always wanted, yes.
So that is the one thing you wanted. You wanted to
Yes.
travel to
I
see
wanted
places.
I wanted to be as much as possible abroad, but in order to get promoted, you have to go to headquarters and to promote yourself. So I'm
Right.
already director of a bureau. You have to be director of a department, etc.
Yeah. So I want to talk more about that kind of course, right? For diplomats, what they teach you. How do they teach you? I guess you need to be adaptable, right?
Yeah.
A person, because you're gonna go different places around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you need to be in the public eye.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's personality. I mean, some people are shy. Do they?
Yeah, this is the thing. Diplomacy. It's not a profession. I think that for me the most important thing, you have on the first day they tell you what is the most important ability or strength that you need to have as a diplomat. For me personally, I think it's curiosity. Because if you're not curious, you will always do the same. You will be a great, maybe bureaucrat. You will say whatever is needed to be said, etc. But if you're not curious and open-minded, you will not do the next step. And I see sometimes colleagues that for them to be in India, United States, and Africa, it's the same because they continue to eat the same food, they continue to hear Israeli music and see Israeli
Right.
TV. What's the point?
So the idea is for you, it's important to immerse yourself.
Yeah, I don't want to be more Chinese than Chinese. I need to
sure.
understand where I am, to be curious about it, to get what I like from each culture. I don't need to submerge myself because, in 3 or 4 years, you cannot do that anyway.
Yeah,
I don't have to, I cannot presume to understand fully any country that I was there. Because that's why some of my colleagues always say, the Chinese thing. No, you cannot really know because you are not Chinese. You can have your opinion, and you guys have been living here a long time, and I still think that if you are not born in a place or don't speak, the language from your first
Right.
days, it's difficult. But yes, to know what you need to know, and to try to be curious, not only to hear the official stuff, also to hear. For example, for me, it's important from time to time to go in a Didi or taxi. You hear?
Do you?
Yeah, do you hear what's going on really? Even
Right.
though with my terrible Chinese that is non-existent, but you find a Didi driver that speaks some English, and you ask him, and so curiosity is the most important.
This
thing
is
that
what
you need.
I guess. This is what makes you enjoy anywhere you go.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely,
I mean,
absolutely.
but it's probably coming from a personality, like you said. You don't want to be someone that just serve, and there's no life, right? It's just
I'm interested to know, since you... Okay, probably we're going to go chronologically, but now that you mentioned, what things did you learn in Colombia? I mean, this...
Apart from dancing, salsa and merengue.
That's from my city. I'm from Cali.
Caleño.
all Latinos dance. I mean, what the deal with that?
I don't know. It's...
I was single then, so that's the only way to get. I think that for me, Colombia was a big lesson because that was the first time that I saw how a nation can be divided.
Sorry that I interrupt you, but it's important to mention when you were there.
I was in the 1990s.
There was
time of
the 80s and the 90s were difficult.
Yeah, this was the time of the when I was there at the end of the Pablo
Medellin
Escobar
cartel.
area, the cartels, but still bombs were in the street, and the personal security was very, very low.
So you left Israel to a more dangerous place.
Absolutely. I'm always telling people, Israel is a safe country.
Yeah.
Believe me. Really, if you look at the statistic, it's one of the safest places in the
compare.
world.
How did you understand the Colombian situation? What was the picture that you had? How did you see the problem?
For me, it's purely economic. It's purely economic, and that's the tragedy of all South America, if I can say. It's about how to divide the wealth, because Colombia it's an amazing wealthy country. It's the division of wealth that makes the problems or that Colombia was facing, and I think still face. So it's the division of wealth. I come from Israel. When I grew up in Israel in the 1970s, 80s, I grew up in a nice city, nice neighborhood, Ramat Sharon, but you didn't see very rich people and very poor people. Most Israelis were middle class, up or down. Yes, I'm originally from South America, but I left very, very young, and I come from Uruguay. That also it doesn't have a lot of this, disparity. But when you arrive to Colombia and you see people that are, on one hand, extremely rich,
Absolute billionaires.
very well educated, very refined, and then you go to the poor parts, and you go to inland, and you see that there is really
the absence of
really, I don't say equality, because it's a democratic country, and you can succeed in life and you can become, but the division or that really shocked me, and I think that's something that still persists in South America. In Colombia, it took a path of the narcos or the cartel. That's a different path from other countries. But the vivity of Colombia was amazing. The joy of life, the music, the everything else. It's really, on the other hand, gives you a lot of hope.
We're told, or we're said to be some of the happiest people in the world.
It's just something natural, I guess, right? For you. But
Yeah.
you come from a middle class family, I guess, Fernando, right?
Yeah.
Was it dangerous to go out to the street? where
Yeah,
you
we
live?
have bodyguards going to university,
Yeah.
things like that, because you don't know when something was gonna happen.
Right. So you watch Narcos on Netflix?
No,
I hate them.
no,
Yeah,
sorry.
No, you didn't.
no, because I feel that
You've been there.
no, it's not the Hollywood version. What
Right.
can I say? No, I have to tell you that I saw the trailers and I thought it's not interesting.
So on that token, have you watched Fauda?
No.
Also not.
Neither.
Okay, you don't watch much TV.
I watch. Actually, I don't have. I watch series. Fauda, for me, I started watching Fauda. It was too close to home. I don't know how to define you, because when I was in the army, I was there.
Yeah, you were there, Gaza or
I
whatever.
was
yeah.
I was in the territories,
Yes, yes.
and I used to accompany these guys. And
Yeah.
For me, when I watch TV, I want to escape the reality. I don't want to submerge
Go
a little
back
bit.
to that.
It's
Yeah.
one of the things that I can't take these kind of series. And you go on something like Netflix, and there's 12, 13 different series about
Yeah.
30 years ago history
Right.
of Colombia. So
Right.
kind of like let it go, no?
And all of them speak English. None of them
Yeah,
speak
yeah.
Spanish.
Exactly.
At least Fauda, they speak Hebrew and Arabic.
Right, they do.
So
Yes.
At least it's authentic.
Yes, it is. So I'm going to jump, just since we are talking about this. You were quarantined, right, recently, or no? Or you weren't in quarantine?
In China?
Yes, in China.
No.
No, okay.
I was lucky
All
because
right,
I
it
was
was-
here.
Okay, all right. It's just maybe the consulate was closed or something?
No, actually,
So you're
to
working
tell-
from home or something?
No, to tell you the truth, we never closed even for one day
Okay.
from the beginning, because of course at the first days we didn't work, all of us, always on. But we never closed, because even in the first days, in the end of January and beginning of February, we had a lot of work, consular work, to assist a lot to Israelis that
Yeah.
wanted to leave at the time.
Right.
So we
I
opened our, and for me personally, I think it's to work at home. It's for a diplomat. It's not a work. will excuse me, I'm not a painter, I'm not a journalist, I cannot work at
So
home.
what is the work of a diplomat? I mean, I guess is that depends on different countries.
Yeah, this is the amazing thing. I work in the same place, but every 3 or 4 years I do a completely different work. So
it depends on the country.
It depends completely on the country.
The
and your post.
requirements are
The requirement,
different.
and of course, what is your position as head of mission? Like now, I have several responsibilities.
All right. So you said Angola was a lot of aid and stuff like that.
yeah.
What was Colombia?
Colombia was a lot of also international cooperation, more in agriculture and administrative work, because I was doing also administration there. For me, for me it was fun basically.
What kind of seeds were planted during your time in Colombia that we could see today? Projects or programs?
Yeah. So unfortunately, at the time, we did a lot of cooperation in terms of security and in the army. That was one. If you remember later, Israelis were involved, for example, in the not kidnapping, but saving Ingrid Betancourt.
Oh yeah.
For example, and not always in a positive way. The image of Israel in Colombia, because we are very much contacting that. I prefer to talk about, I did a lot of work with Israelis that were kidnapped as well by the FARC and the ELN, the two different guerrilla groups. And I worked for 1.5 years to try to secure some guys that were kidnapped, and they were released afterwards. And a lot of work in the field of actually milk production. Yeah. So basically, most of the milk production in Colombia nowadays is based upon Israeli technology and Israeli.
Well, my brother used to work for one of the largest milk manufacturers in Colombia, Alpina.
Yeah. So we did
Probably.
something. Alpina was very high end and
So
expensive.
how does that work? Okay, so it's governments.
Yeah.
No, I'm not talking milk specifically,
Yeah.
but like it's governments.
Exchange of
Government.
technology.
It's governments cooperate.
Absolutely. For example, this project used to call Mega Leche.
Okay.
Like
Mega milk.
Mega milk. And we brought some, first of all, a lot of Colombians came to Israel to study how, because, the Israeli cow is the most rentable cow.
All right.
In terms of how much milk we produce from there, it's like 5 times more than
Really?
regular. Yeah.
Why is that?
Because we treat the cow as a resource that you have to invest in, not just to put it and give milk. Each cow in Israel have a sensor to see how much salt it has, so how much water to drink,
So
how much
it's
food
something
to bring
other
it.
places don't do.
No,
Okay.
no.
You know that.
And
It just
This
Just
is
go
my
to the
course.
field.
I'm gonna be a diplomat. This is my course about my country.
So basically, and also you don't see cows in the field in Israel.
Right.
First of all, we don't have a lot of fields, but secondly,
Right.
we see milk or dairy as an industry.
Right. We perfected it.
In general, because of lack of resources, we see agriculture as an industry. And therefore, it has to be planned, it has to be well executed, and this is something we did in the north of Colombia for the poor people, how to get more profit out of it, and it's more the production of milk. It's cooperativism,
But what I mean
so
is-
how do we do it?
No, I mean also like where the government and business connect, because there is a business side to this, right?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I'm a diplomat. I always tell I'm like a Polish officer. I don't speak about money. It has benefits, of course.
Right,
Because
right.
if you introduce a technology, we expect them afterwards to buy it. It's not a must, but
yeah.
Right.
I bring an Israeli producer. He will bring the technology that he brings, and then somebody else will copy it. As for example, the drip irrigation.
Right.
That it was an Israeli invented, and now
Actually, my cousin went to study in Israel
Ah.
About dripping
We're kind of
irrigation,
famous
yeah.
for that. Yeah, that's one I
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
and cherry tomatoes and stuff like that.
Right.
So this is what I remember. This is the seeds that we are. So now, I don't know if you know, but the prices of milk it went down dramatically because of that. Because you have more production and it's not centralized in some companies.
And that has probably very big significance. I mean, for a country, right? Price
Yeah.
of milk going
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
It means many things for the future, right?
Absolutely.
Correct.
Absolutely.
So that was Colombia. Then then was where?
I went to Hungary.
No. Hungary.
Hungary.
Okay.
Hungary in the late 90s, beginning of 2000, a country going out of communism
Yes.
was very challenging.
Right.
There I did a lot of Jewish affairs. A huge Jewish community that was coming out of the closet because they were not, during the communist time, there was no free, basically,
Practice of religion?
practice of religion, let's put it that way. The communities were less political but more religious in a way. So it was a lot of work, how to construct, how to build a community from scratch.
How many Jews were there
In Hungary, we
the
pursued
time?
300,000.
at the time?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Because there are many, Hungary descendants
Yeah.
in Israel. I'm half Hungarian. My grandparents spoke Hungarian.
Right.
So, yeah.
So a lot of them stay, and it was for me, it was an amazing time to see how a society is changing, getting out of communism, entering capitalism, entering the EU. It was amazing. A lot of business opportunities also at the time.
So that
It
was
was
a
a
big
huge.
thing.
It was a huge change. Can you imagine coming from Colombia to Hungary? The first December
food.
in Hungary, not the food, the people. Nobody smiles in the
difference,
street.
right?
Yeah, the difference. You come from everything is a party, and then minus 30 degrees, and nobody smiles in the street, and it was quite depressing.
But you did have 2 years in Israel.
No, I did it directly.
For that one, you went.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, if it's not the full 5-6 years, you can still go.
Exactly.
I
So
see.
I
So you
did Angola 1 year, 3 years. So
Okay.
I
so you
extended a little
continued.
bit. I continued, and it was a huge shock. It took me.
Wow.
And suddenly to arrive to a country that you don't understand.
And what are the
Nothing
steps to develop that? Well, I wouldn't say that the identity was lost, but there
Mm.
was an identity that was kind of like hidden.
Yeah, absolutely.
What were some of the steps that you had to take to bring it about, to bring it out? And
First of all, it's a concept that you can believe in two things at the same time. You can be a proud Hungarian, but to be a proud Jew as well. That it doesn't conflict.
it's not exclusive.
It's not conflicted. You can be a great Colombian and to be a Jew, or to be a Christian, or to be atheist. It's a sense of giving empowerment to the community, because coming out from that kind of regime they had before is that everything has to come from the government, and now you're forming a civil society. And by the way, Israel, for example, is one of the most rare examples that we had a civil society before having a state. Because if you look at the history of everywhere, you have the state, okay, emperor, king, whatever, colonial rule that formed the civil society. And then when the state was proclaimed or something like that, you had, everything is built. In Israel, we didn't have a state, but we had civil society.
And not but we had some colony. I mean,
No,
British and
Yes, but for example, we had our own museums, the
Culture.
Culture.
Yes.
We had
Yeah,
the institutions.
The connecting tissue was
We
there.
had institutions that later on was very easy to transform them.
that was around Judaism, I guess.
Around
Not-
Judaism.
not
Not
entirely,
entirely.
you're right, yes.
Not entirely. But so to build a civil society, that's the challenge, and not only Hungary. All of the countries that were before in the Eastern Bloc didn't have it, because they were erased during those times. So to build a strong civil society, it's very important.
How do the people even in Hungary and in other places too? How do they even? Because Jews always kept it, right?
Mhm, yeah.
Even hidden in the closet, they always kept it.
Mm-hmm.
How do you not? How do you keep it? How do you not become just like everybody else and forget that? And
Depends on your parents. Come on,
education.
it's not even education, because they were not educated. It's something really in your soul. You can be religious or not, believe in God or not, but there is something of a tradition, something that you take with you. So to take it out and not to be ashamed of that. For example, if you go to the United States or China, anywhere else, or nowadays in Hungary, they will say, "Okay, I'm Jewish." They will not tell me as an Israeli. They will not tell me I'm Jewish. They will tell me I have a cousin in Israel. I have a cousin in Tel Aviv. They will not even have the ability to say I'm Jewish.
Really?
So
It's kind of true, yeah.
Had it been like scraped from their identity, or was it fear?
it was fear, basically. It's because in those times you have one thing. You are defined by one thing, and the self-definition. And as Israelis, we are very aware of that because an Israeli has several self-definition. Let's say China. Chinese, for them, it's very easy to define themselves. I'm a Chinese, point. Maximum, they will say I also Cantonese or something. But it's very easy to say.
Whatever.
Yeah, but it's very, first of all, what are you? Chinese. No religion, no Chinese.
Right.
For an Israeli, it's not the same. Every Israeli that you will ask, it will answer you differently.
It becomes like secondary.
No, it will come, if you ask somebody in the street in Israel, what are you? It will tell you, I'm Jew. That's your religion, it's not nationality. If you go to an Arab place, they will tell you, I'm Arab Israeli, or I'm a Palestinian Israeli.
Are we the only country that have the, in the ID?
No.
In the ID, we have the religion.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We call it nationality now.
They call it nationality now?
Yeah, not religion. But there are other countries that you have to redefine. But in Israel, it's very, it's difficult to define yourself. If you ask me what I am, I will tell you in Israeli. But I will tell you another thing immediately. And in a lot of countries, for example, you go to the States. Okay, I will tell you an American, but they will tell you I'm Afro-American, I'm Latino-American,
But they will not say I'm Christian.
I don't know, depends where. If you go to the south of the United States today.
No, I mean,
Yes.
recently I was talking to people and we talked about the issue of, like, I'm Jewish. I always say I'm Jewish. I don't believe in God, okay?
No.
But I'm Jewish. But Christians, it doesn't work like that.
Unless you are a new Christian.
And I figured out that it's because my people been through all of that, my grandparents, whatever. I cannot not say
Deny
I'm Jewish.
it.
I cannot. I need to be loyal to that. I am Jewish. You know what I mean? So it's like religion, but without the. Yeah, it's interesting.
Without the practice?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Do we need to take a break?
Yeah, okay, guys. So we're going to take a very, very short break and we come back to a very interesting interview. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, guys. So we are back. We're going to continue with our interview. What are we up to now,
Yes,
Ziv?
and now we're going to play a nice little game called This or That. You can explain a little bit about the game?
Well, the idea is we're going to give you a couple of choices, and you tell us what you choose and whatever rationale that is behind your choice. All right?
Okay.
So I'll start?
Yes.
All right, cool. So since you told us that you get trained in public speaking, what do you prefer? Teleprompter, read from a page, or memorize?
Neither one.
So
How do you do it?
give your speeches then?
That's the biggest problem that I have in China. I don't like to write it down. I prefer to speak whatever comes to my mind at the same time. And it's a huge problem here,
Right.
Because you have to tell usually in advance because it's going to be translated.
Plus, they want to know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge problem. Yeah.
But do you take notes or?
I write points.
Okay.
I write points and then I elaborate them. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes I have a block, so it's not so great. But I prefer to have to take the risk. I think that I'm not a politician. I need and I see my profession as human to human contact, basically. And if I think that, in my point of view, if I come and read something from a paper or a teleprinter or memorize it, it's not real in a way. I prefer to maybe to be real, even if I forget some points or everything. Here, especially in China, I write myself when it's really important. I write myself the right points.
I saw you speaking today, right? A little bit, Obviously, you're comfortable with everything now. How was it 25 years ago? Like, is it like, oh my God?
No, I loved it anyway.
Oh, you loved it right away?
I loved it anyway. When I was a student, I worked as I worked in like 6 or 7 things. Sometimes I went to university. But yeah.
Okay.
If I wasn't a diplomat, I suppose I would be a teacher or something like that because I like to be in front of people and to share.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, next one. Again, this or that, right? You need to choose one.
Okay.
Hummus or trina, which is Hummus or tahini?
Tahini, no way. Tahini, sure.
Tahini, yeah.
All the way?
Lemon.
All the way.
All
With
right.
lemon.
Yeah. With pita.
Nowadays,
Or with
the
carrots,
diet,
and celery.
Onion.
Onion. All right, good.
That's my
All
drug.
right. On a day-to-day case, suit or smart casual?
Casual.
Casual.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have to wear suit?
I have a lot of them.
Yeah.
One thing I haven't done since I arrived to Guangdong, I didn't put a tie.
Oh, you don't put a tie. You don't have to.
What
even in a meeting? In a meeting?
You know, I
don't know. Like
finally,
some jobs have
after the age of 50, I'm a boss of myself. You know, nobody will tell me what to wear. Of course, if you go to a very official stuff,
you meet the Guangdong governor. You can go without a tie. It's okay.
is it written somewhere? That
No,
I have to go with tie?
but that's what I'm interested to know. Okay, so you don't. Okay.
But they don't always wear ties. I mean,
No, I think that in South China, I think it's the most relaxed place in China.
it's also probably related to the weather.
And it's
so
you know,
hot and humid here.
It's hot and humid. Why should I suffer?
And by the way, you said something. You said I don't have. I mean, you do have a boss, right?
I have a lot of I have 9 million bosses. I work for the states of Israel, so the people of Israel are my boss.
Yeah, but
Nice
like I don't
diplomatic
know,
answer,
the
huh?
minister of foreign affairs, the minister, right?
We have a hierarchy, of course.
Right.
Well, you're Israeli. You know that our hierarchy is
Yes.
not. We're not not very strong on that. We don't call each other sir or.
Yeah.
For example, if I meet the minister, I will try to avoid how to call him, so I don't have to call him Mr. Minister or something.
Right.
I do have a boss. Of course, that the Consulate General works with coordination with the other 3 consulates in
Asia?
in China.
Okay.
China, we have one in Chengdu, one in Shanghai, Hong Kong, and of course with the embassy in Beijing that they deal with all the political issues.
But if you meet Netanyahu, you have to say Adoni Rosh HaMemshala, no, Mr. Prime Minister or something like that. You do.
I met him a lot of times. Yes, of course.
You do. Yeah.
Yeah,
There is
him,
some
yes.
place, some instance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I got next question. Next question is the beach or mountains?
Mountain.
Mountains.
Mountain.
Always mountains.
Always green because, I grew up on the beach in Israel, so I'm searching now for something else.
Okay.
So mountain.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to skip this one. You can ask it, but then I ask the other one.
Sure.
CNN, MSNBC, or Fox News?
Ooh-huh. This is the problem of nowadays that depends. If you tell what you read or what you see, it's immediately defines you. Yeah.
So actually, the question says right wing or left.
We were trying to
Right.
give you a curve.
No, but it says we can talk about anything.
CCTV.
CCTV. Okay.
Okay, good.
All right. Next one. Yeah, go back. So with the passport, biometric or not?
Nowadays, it has to be biometric.
But what's your opinion?
Biometric. I don't have a problem. No, those. Let's be real. We have no privacy. We have no privacy.
Facebook, all of it. Yeah,
We have no privacy. This is the price that we pay for being a part of this modern world.
I agree.
So, biometric passport or not, I don't want to,
Yeah,
say the obvious, but it doesn't really matter.
Right. Okay.
All right. An easy one, Guangzhou or Shenzhen?
Guangzhou.
Guangzhou?
I live there. I tell you what, I love Shenzhen.
Mhm.
I think that the energies of Shenzhen is it's something incomparable. Guangzhou is more of a city.
Mhm.
It has more soul. You can go in the street. You see
Old.
history.
Yes, Shenzhen is very new.
Israel is very new as well, but we have a tradition. But
No, but when you are in Jerusalem,
Yeah.
the Wailing Wall, you feel
the
right?
history.
I always say, like, when you go to Tiananmen, you go to Gugong, to Forbidden City, you feel it
Yeah, it's
in
there.
the air, right? Shenzhen is a new city. Yeah.
the right
Guangzhou.
the right answer would have been Dongguan, of course, which is in the middle. But I don't want to be a smartass.
Right.
No, I have to say that I prefer Dongguan over either one of those.
Mm.
It's just the right size. I don't know how you feel.
Me, 100%. I'm all the way Dongguan. Nice to visit Guangzhou and Shenzhen sometime. Yeah. All right. Next one is, well, after we spoke a little bit, I think I probably know the answer, but ambassador or a government minister?
Ambassador.
100%.
I thought about going to politics. I think I can contribute a lot as a politician. I'm not willing to pay the price. And if I go to politics, and I continue to thinking about it, I prefer to do local politics because I think as a mayor, you can achieve much more than to be like a member of parliament because you really touch the lives of people.
So Tel Aviv one day?
Give a time.
Give a time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Smaller, you know.
Smaller, nicer.
Yeah.
All right. Continue with how you get your information. Newspaper, internet, or TV?
Internet.
Internet.
Yeah, absolutely. TV, I have cables. I have to admit I never opened them.
Mm-hmm.
No. So internet for me, in 5 minutes I can go over all of them and then
Newspaper is dead?
For me, yes.
Mm.
Unfortunately, in Israel still no, because in Israel I get the newspaper because I have to commute to work. So I'm on the bus for half an hour and there it's easier still. The smell and the feeling of the newspaper, but it's, in my opinion, it's dead. Absolutely.
Right.
All right.
The last one.
Yeah.
Business or politics?
Politics.
Yeah, we spoke about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I understand. And even that, not so much, right?
Even
Like
that,
you
not
said.
so much. But politics is interesting. Business, once, you have to recognize your faults. I know how to spend money very well, not to earn it.
All right.
My specialty.
All right. Well, thank you. This was This or That.
Let's continue.
Let's continue
Right.
with our talk. So after Hungary?
Yeah, after Hungary, what came next?
I went home a little bit.
Okay.
I was 3 years in Israel.
You were already in Tel Aviv by then?
I was already in Tel Aviv, and I worked in the ministry. And
What
that's it.
what did you? I mean, Tel Aviv. This is still 90s or 2000s? 2000s.
Something.
So that was the time with the suicide bombings, I guess.
Yes, a little bit.
Right?
Yeah.
Tel Aviv had some.
Yeah.
Right.
But the end of it, yeah,
How was it?
2001.
How was it to live in Tel Aviv back then?
Listen, when you live with things, it looks less big or less dangerous than you read it in the newspaper or
Right.
internet. Let's do a comparison. You were here in the end of January, February. Everybody from abroad was, how can you live in China?
Right.
It's not dangerous, and you didn't feel it so
Right.
much. So the same in Tel Aviv. Okay, the whole of Israel. You have a tension in the air. To tell you the truth, I didn't take the public transportation because my mother told me you don't
Buses,
go.
yeah.
You don't go on a bus, so it was a me opportunity to get some money to buy a new car. But you think differently. It's like today, the mask and the alcohol gel. It's something in Israel
start
at
to
the
think
time you start to think differently. If there are too many people on the line, maybe I won't go to that line because if there was a terrorist, he will attack that line. I will not go on the bus.
It is. You think very differently. It's very interesting. I always say. I mean, we thought about it. We were there. We were taking a bus. Like you say, it's like the thing. You see someone, he looks suspicious.
Absolutely.
You can't say anything because then if you're right, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So you may need to just choose to go off the bus, and it might blow up, and you will live with it all your life. But or you say something, right? Yeah. It's stuff you think about. So it's kind of crazy.
It's interesting what you're mentioning because, well, you lived in Colombia at a time where we also had to develop the same skills, the same suspicions, or the same kind of like, is this going to be today? Is this going to be?
Absolutely.
I can relate to.
Yeah,
to that.
I lived a few blocks from Club El Nogal that was bombed. So and you are not get used to it. I was in the army for 5 years, and I saw blood and I saw stuff. But it's different, and mostly you think about your family basically. You don't think about yourself.
The thing that hits me the most is how arbitrary that was. There was not an enemy.
Right.
It was just population.
Violent.
Population.
Yeah.
Just anybody.
Right.
It was just trying to destabilize the country. That was the worst thing about it.
That makes me. I want to ask about the. So, I don't know. I want to ask you if all of the consuls, ambassadors are like the Israeli one or not.
We're always the special. We always have security issues.
Yes.
Thank God that China is one of the most safest places for us, and this is one of the reasons I arrived here.
Right,
because,
it's true.
Relatively, security is very easy, but I was ambassador in Paraguay, and you have bodyguards 24/7. I lived in a building. When I used to go down to the gym, I have to tell the bodyguard, I'm going down, or I forgot something.
You still need to do that, right?
In Paraguay, yes.
No, here, no.
No.
Here, not.
No.
But some countries, yes.
Most countries.
Most countries.
One of
As
the
an
reasons-
Israeli.
As an Israeli.
Yes.
Today, I could have been head of mission or ambassador or consul general before. We chose not to do it because I didn't want to lose my privacy in a way.
Right.
Because there's no spontaneity. Okay, I feel like going out for a drink. No, I have to I have to coordinate with the bodyguard in the car. And in Colombia, we had a armored car, and everything becomes difficult.
This is just security for Israelis.
For Israelis, yes.
Right. So like when we go to the Israeli consulate, I don't know if it's the same with others. We need to leave everything outside, right? I mean, like,
phones.
or maybe now also others, I guess. I don't know.
Americans are
Americans now too, right?
Yeah, but there are many countries that have the same restriction. Indians, Japanese, Chinese abroad sometimes. Terrorism, this is one of the things that we as Israelis, we're trying to explain. Terrorism is not something that only Israel suffers.
Right.
Unfortunately, after 9/11, and especially the last years, the terrorism had become a problem for everybody. There is no one country that doesn't suffer from terrorism. I'm not going into what is terrorism, or is it right, or is it wrong. I'm not getting into it, but there is barely no country that it's like the COVID-19, okay? There is no country that is not touched by terrorism nowadays.
Right.
Is it religious, economic? It doesn't matter. So at the time, though, yes, Israel was only one of the countries. So a lot of countries are facing that, and nowadays.
Right. So okay. So you went to Tel Aviv. You stayed there a couple of years.
Yeah.
Right. And then you did some other work. What did you? Do you remember? What did?
I actually had a great job. I was working in the real estate division of the ministry, and I was in charge of finding new housing for ambassadors. So I went around the world looking for apartments or buildings.
For Israeli ambassadors.
It was an amazing job.
Wow. So but you have to fly around the world.
And to try to find, to authorize, to choose.
The apartments, not the embassies, obviously, right?
Also
that.
Real estate in general. So the thing is that I've been to cities that I know only, only real estate. I've been to, for example, to Ukraine, to Kiev 7 times. I never saw anything but construction sites.
Wow.
It was just crazy.
Is it an embassy? Is it in a country like the embassy of USA in China? Is it American territory?
Yeah.
How does that work?
There's something called the Vienna Convention that basically gives all the rules of the diplomatic and consular relations. And yes, the embassy itself is exterritorial. For example, for the police to come to an embassy, they cannot do it. They have to have an approval in advance and written to come inside. Also, the residence of the ambassador.
The residence
of the ambassador.
Just ambassador.
Yeah, and the cars also, actually.
The cars.
The car also.
They can't be searched. Can't be
searched or something like that. Here in Guangzhou, it's a consular
residence.
Yes, so it has some other limits. But yes, it's an exterritorial. Also here, the Consul General of each country.
Which country do you have to own it? Like
no,
Israel?
You can rent,
you rent it. Yeah. It's temporarily territory, ex-territory.
That's quite interesting. I've never thought about that.
Yeah. No, there are a lot of debates. For example, if you have a car accident, do you have the diplomatic immunity or not?
Yeah, I wanted to just talk about diplomatic immunity and some of, I don't know, what would be some of the perks that you could share with us about having diplomatic immunity.
Now, I never used it.
Well, diplomatic status, like no lines at the airports, no.
Nowadays, it's less and less, let's put it that way. Sometimes you go on the diplomatic lane, but sometimes, if you go there, they check your passports 5 times more, So, and the baggage anyway, you have to wait. So what's the point?
Makes no difference.
No, the diplomatic immunity was based upon the ability to perform your job, compatriots, your countrymen, that you can do stuff as a representative of another country. This is why it was done. Later on, it was a little bit more, you don't have to pay taxes, etc., but it's always bilateral. The same perks that we get here, we give to the Chinese over there, etc. Each country has its own rules, and it's always one against the other.
But it's not always with every country, everything. For example, we need visa to the USA.
Visa is another thing.
Visa is
a completely another thing.
But in China and Israel, it is the same, the visa, right?
Yes.
Kind of.
Yeah.
There was they signed the 10-year.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that's the same. Because it depends on each country. Sometimes these decisions are political.
Yeah.
The Americans, they look at numbers. Their decision, apart from politics, you got to say, how come an Israeli needs a visa to the United States?
Yes.
But they look at the numbers. How many Israelis stay illegally in Israel, in the United States? And they say, okay, it's above 5%, so it's enough. Okay, so you get a visa.
Talking about the relationship with America, what is your perspective on moving the embassy?
Basically, for me, the American embassy is Jerusalem. For me, it's really easy. My capital is Jerusalem. Yes. I expect everybody to be in Jerusalem.
That's what I said.
The thing is that the Americans, it's not that Trump decided. He didn't decide it. The decision was taken 40 years ago. The thing is that every president until Trump
didn't want to be the one.
Postpone it, and they had this yearly postpone. So Trump was the first one who said, you can like it or not like it, but he's a guy that says what he thinks. He said the decision was taken, we implement it. As simple as that. Mm-hmm. Whenever everybody asks me, okay, why did you? I tell you, what if tomorrow Israel decides to take the embassy from Bogota to Santa Marta? The beach is nice, the weather is better. How will the Colombian people like it? They won't. They'll say, Bogota is our capital. So why are we expected to receive the Tel Aviv as the capital? No, my capital is Jerusalem. It's normal.
I speak a lot against my country, honestly, when I feel morally obligated, very left-wing, But with that, like America recognized Jerusalem, right? There was the thing. I'm like, I don't need America to recognize it. It is my capital.
Listen, I think I'm one of the good things about being Israeli is that to be able to be critical on my government. Even myself as a diplomat, as a civil servant, I'm willingly criticize my government. And Israel is a very divided country. It's a very you ask two Israelis one opinion, you will have three answers.
Is it more today than before? Like that?
Absolutely more today. But there is one thing that really unites most people is Jerusalem. And let's keep it that way. At least we have something that unites us, which is Jerusalem.
That was not an easy question, I guess.
No.
Right.
But then is the answer.
Right. So go back to in diplomatic immunity. I mean, the stuff that you you were an ambassador before, consul general. First of all, in Guangzhou, a consul general, right? That's your title, right?
Yeah.
Because China is so big, and this is for all Guangdong.
We cover from Guangzhou the south of. We call it the consulate general for south of China.
It's basically probably bigger than being ambassador in some countries.
In most countries.
Right. Yeah. So it's the same level in a way.
Yeah, it's the same level. Actually, most of consul generals that were here were ambassadors before. We see our posting in Guangzhou as second or third tier. Yeah. And in terms of number of employees, in terms of budget, in terms of importance to the Israeli economy, Guangzhou is much more important than 4 or 5 other countries together.
I was one of the first to get a passport there at the Guangzhou one when they opened it. 10 years ago?
10 years ago, exactly.
10 years ago. 11 years ago, they opened it, right. Some countries don't have. Do you have a consulate in Guangzhou?
Yes.
Yeah, but some countries don't.
Colombia, yeah.
Actually, Guangzhou,
Colombia has...
it has. Guangzhou has today 65 consulate generals, which is a lot. We are catching up on Shanghai, and this is something to be very proud of for Guangdong. Okay. And even real consulate generals, I think that Guangzhou already passed Shanghai. So the importance is very big. You will ask, why do we need Guangzhou when you have Hong Kong, which is 2 hours away?
Yes.
But it's a completely
It's right.
different story.
Different legal
border,
system,
Yeah.
different.
Absolutely, and we see that Israel, because of what we spoke before, looking for East, we invest more and more in relations with China. Guangdong is very important for us because economically, commercially, this is the place to be.
What do you think about the American consulate? It's huge. It's crazy.
And nicely located also.
Beautifully.
Yeah.
I've been inside a few times. What is it? I mean, there is some...
Americans do everything big.
Yeah.
Have you seen a small Chinese embassy? No.
The one in
Is it-
Bogota? It's
I
not
heard
too big.
is it the biggest consulate in the world or something like this?
No.
As a consulate
No,
general?
no.
No?
They have much bigger.
They have bigger.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we ask you what's the perks, right? What's the drawbacks? Can you okay? So I wanted to ask this. You said you're taking a Didi,
Yeah.
right? You take a Didi, so you're allowed to.
Yeah.
Is this not on the job? Because why take Didi on the job? You got cars and everything, right?
Yeah, but sometimes it's nicer to take Didi. Especially with the Didi Premium, you take a Tesla and you feel like, wow, I have a Tesla because I'm Israeli.
But you don't take a Didi to a meeting with a mayor, or
If my car is busy, or I don't have a problem with it.
yeah,
Yeah. I prefer not to, of course.
just with the
because
security. Do you have to have security with you all the time? Sometimes. Okay. So can you just go out to the bar, get drunk?
I can go out to the bar. I prefer not to get drunk
Yeah.
because, that's the perk. Yeah. The thing is that I'm not Peleg sometimes.
Right.
Okay, I represent the country. If somebody sees me drunk or somebody sees me doing something wrong, it's wrong. It's the reputation of my country. Therefore, sometimes I cannot. Yeah.
Right. You prefer not.
For example, in the last weeks when we had cases that foreigners were not allowed to enter to places or discriminated, it happens to me as well. Several times.
People don't know who you are.
No, but I didn't complain officially to the ministry, to the FAO,
right.
because I did a lot for other Israelis.
Right.
When I thought, but
Sure.
for me, it's I don't want to make.
I don't want to use that card.
Exactly, I don't want to make a big deal out of it. So yes, so that's why when I was ambassador in Paraguay, I had a bodyguard all the time, and I used to go every 2 weeks just to cross the border to Argentina, because when you cross the border, you become a normal citizen, a normal tourist. You don't have a bodyguard, and you can breathe a little bit in a way. So
Yeah.
China is not so difficult. It's not
Right.
difficult at all. So, but yes.
How about family? As a civil servant, going around the world, it's difficult, right?
Yeah, that's the biggest challenge today. In the past, maybe for most diplomats were men, and the woman was it was obvious that she will lose her career and go after her husband. It's not the way today. Nowadays, in the last several courses, 65%. There are more women than men in the diplomatic career.
Okay.
It's all over the world, actually. When I started, it was 70-30. 70 men, 30% women. Now it's the opposite.
The opposite. Wow.
For me, in the last 16 years, I have a partner, and we don't have kids, and he, in a way, he sacrifices his career. But in Israel, we have a different system, but we think that if the husband or if the diplomat is not, if the spouse of the diplomat is not happy, so the diplomat will be miserable.
Right.
Therefore, our spouses don't stay home and have cocktails and cook. They work. If they want, they can work at the consulate.
You
of
find
their embassy.
something for them.
Yeah, it's obligatory for us to give them
Obligatory.
obligatory for us if they want to work, which is another challenge to work with your spouse 24/7.
Yes, I'm sure. Yeah, you do that.
Tell me.
Yes, so it's a huge challenge, but it's worth it. But this is the biggest challenge of the diplomatic world is
The spouse has to give us
the spouse
something.
and the children. It's not easy always
Yeah.
for the children. It's nice to have to go to an American school and to enjoy different cultures, but it's very challenging.
The roots are kind of like cut. They're
So you have to work harder.
Yes.
You have to work harder that your children will have the roots and will study Hebrew and will know about religion. So, but it's up to you, basically.
Right. All right. So as a diplomat, is it, does it matter if you don't share? Like you said a little bit about it. You talked about you can criticize. So it doesn't matter if you don't share political views with your superiors.
I think that, first of all...
Because that's what people think, people make it together, but,
Yeah, listen, I'm a public employee. I have to represent what the government says, of course. I can criticize it. I can tell my superiors, listen, this is something I cannot do. And I think that every person have to have a red line.
All right.
I think that's, and I didn't get to my red line.
Okay.
I think that you don't see a lot of diplomats doing that, but if something will happen, and that it will be my decision, and I will say. And sometimes the ministry, for me, sometimes I was in positions that I preferred not to go to a certain event or to present myself to a certain person because I thought it's immoral for me. I explained to the headquarters, and they told me, okay, either you can send somebody else or just don't go.
All right, that's good. So we take a break and we talk more about China and Israel relationship right after that.
All right, and we are back with a very, very important guest today. And we are going to play our second game of the show, which is called What's Up with This?
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is Ziv went through some social media and picked up a couple of pictures, and we want to know a little bit of context around the pictures, okay? Right. So Ziv, go right ahead.
This is the first one. This looks interesting.
Yes. That was in June. That was it was called Pride in the living room.
Pride in the living room.
Pride in the living room. Okay. This was Pride in the terrace because the living room was too small.
Okay.
We have this fashion in Israel. This thing that gather groups and to talk about subjects. And this was during Pride Day, Pride Month in June. And
Tel Aviv.
In Tel Aviv. Yeah, and I was talking about myself and about myself, basically, life. And so this is Pride in the living room. For example, last week I did Remember in the living room.
Right.
It's about the Holocaust Day. Right. So I invited some people also, and we spoke about the Holocaust. We spoke about remembrance, and we spoke about it.
So Israel is very open about gays, right? Pride, right?
Yeah, I think that we are a country that
very
democratic and it's a very
no, but I mean they say Tel Aviv Pride Parade, which I have been to a few times. It's one of the biggest in the world, one of the most notable in the world. But we are kind of like we are democratic in a Jewish state, right? Like it's in the name, it's in the religion is there. It's kind of surprising, I think, to people that we are
sometimes
open
yes
about
it. But I think this is like the debate: are we a Jewish state? Are we a democratic state? First of all, I don't think that sexual orientation has any conflict with religion, in a way, because you see all religions, not all religions are against homosexuality. For example, if you look at the East.
Not all?
No, in
well,
the East.
Eastern,
here in China, there's nothing religious about it. And I think that also in religions that are now more discriminatory, it's because of the interpretation of that you take it.
Yeah.
So Israel, I think that part of the power, of the force, of the strength of the Israeli society is to be able to be open.
Right.
Because we are a country of immigrants.
It's not by all sectors, though. I mean, when they tried to do the Pride Parade in Jerusalem, that was an issue.
And this is something that you have to respect.
Right.
You don't have to put things on strength, but it's something that I personally believe that we have to fight.
So in this kind of evening, you talk about yourself, you give the experience, and
absolutely,
right, showing that.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand.
Okay, we're moving on to another picture.
Another picture, yes, this one.
This is when I received the keys to the city, or the honorary citizenship of a city called Encarnacion, which is in the south of Paraguay. This picture is important because the guy to my right was the governor at the time, and I reposted it because he died later on. He was candidate to vice presidency in the last election in Paraguay, and his plane came down, and Luis and Nightig. So that's why I published it.
So you got the keys to the city. And usually we do 2, but I want to do 3 today, Fernando.
Yeah.
And this is the last one.
So this is from a couple of weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago.
Okay.
This is a donation we received to Israel.
Of masks.
This is thermometers, actually.
Thermometers, okay.
Thermometers.
So donations from China?
Yeah.
From Chinese businessmen or?
From Chinese associations and businessmen, yeah. Basically, because, when things started in February, some Israeli businessmen or universities send donations of masks here.
Right.
The first weeks. Not governmental, but private initiative, and the same it's happening now in China. So we were approached by churches, by association, by business partners.
Churches here?
Yeah, here and around. Yeah, people that churches or other associations, and they didn't ask us actually. They just arrived with masks.
Oh. Hey, here.
We are here, and here.
What is every country you think get these kind of things now from China, or some more, some less?
I think it's some more, some less. I think that our case is quite special because most donations that arrive to other countries are based upon business companies that are doing business ties, and I think that we're only ones to really got it from people who love Israel.
Interesting. All right, so.
Yeah, well, that was our second game of the show. What's up with this?
Yeah.
All right, let's continue. I wanted to ask a very short question. You mentioned that you became an honorary citizen of, I forgot the name of the city. Encarnacion. What did you, is it a normal thing for diplomats to get it, or was it anything specific that put you in that?
My philosophy is that, we have a lot of what we call protocol or meetings. You are supposed to meet the mayor of this and the governor. I personally don't believe it much. I think it's a waste of time in a way. When I approach a city, a government, is when I have something material, something that concrete that I want to offer as means of cooperation. Mm-hmm. Let's take, for example, Dongguan. Dongguan, which I really, really like, and I think not because we're sitting now in Dongguan, but I think that their FAO works amazingly.
FAO is a
Foreign Affairs Office. Yeah. Okay. So with Dongguan, first of all, there are Israeli companies over here. Some guys called Ziv also.
Yeah.
So first of all, I have something. There are Israelis living here, so I have a kind of connection. I will not go to visit a city on the first thing that there are no Israelis. Just to. We're
sitting in the Sino-Israeli
industrial park.
So Dongguan already have an Israeli enclave, let's put it that way. There are Israeli companies that have factories here, a few of them.
Right.
And so we have our interest. And before this pandemic, we were really developing a kind of a commercial event to do an investment event to bring 50 Israeli companies to invest in Dongguan and vice versa. So therefore, this is meeting. In Encarnacion also, we had a good relationship with in the tourism area,
and that's what led
that's what led to
the reason why I asked, because I'm also an honorary citizen of Dongguan.
So I hope to be one. I don't know if somebody here.
You should come more often. Yeah.
So that's basically, yes. My goal in life is to have an honorary PhD, so I don't have to study for the PhD. I'm still working on that.
Not yet. All right. Yeah, maybe later. The Dongguan University of Technology is here in Songshan Lake.
Yeah.
So we wanted to go to other posts, or we wanted to go into innovation?
Right. I think into innovation. I think into Israeli-China relationship, which includes in innovation a lot.
Yeah, I think it's important that we mention that we want to thank the people here at the Sino-Israeli Industrial Park for allowing us to have this
hosting us
show here.
So nicely.
Thank you very much.
And it's an amazing place, actually.
It is fantastic.
It's the first time for me here today.
Yeah, you saw the parks?
No, I want to come back.
Amazing. It's an amazing place. The architecture. It's really nice.
It's meant to look up something with Israeli.
Yeah. The architect of
Influences,
these the architect of these two buildings, Amnon Richter,
Okay.
is a very known Israeli architect. So it has the Israeli vibe. There are a lot of plants brought from Israel.
Oh, okay.
These are from the lake.
These are from the lake.
I chose them yesterday.
Right. Yeah, you went around. and you
I'm
chose.
going to take them. Okay. No
So-
misunderstanding, please.
So, but okay, if we are talking about it, but there aren't really any Israeli companies here right now.
In this park,
I don't think so.
no.
I don't think
Not
so.
yet.
But is it something that
That's
they are working
That's
on?
the idea. There are many parks around Dongguan.
Right.
Yeah, around Guangdong.
Industrial park.
Sino-Israeli industrial parks. The name, attracts. This park is special because between Israel and China, there is a special relation on innovation. We have something called the innovation committee that sits twice a year, once in Israel and once in China, and really focus on innovation. It's something very unique to Israel from China's point of view. And in this committee has selected 4 parks to be the leading in each in a sector. So this park was elected to be leading in terms of water management and the environment. So therefore, it's the most difficult one, because it's not the obvious one of high-tech companies that will make money quickly. So therefore, it takes more time here. It doesn't mean that Israeli companies have to be here, but there are companies that have a connection either to the area, to the sector of water management, or have to do with Israel. They do business with Israel, or they represent Israeli technologies, etc.
How does it work? Who invests to create this kind of park?
Not Israel.
Right.
Usually it's
private.
It's a mixture. It's a PPP. It's a private partnership with the state, with the public. In this case, it's the government of.
Songshan Lake? Or?
No, Sunshine Lake has to do with it. It started. It's one of the 4 of. So it's also federal government money here.
Okay, Guangdong.
Not Guangdong, Beijing.
Beijing.
From Beijing.
Okay.
And also, of course, private sector is very much involved. We are in a very nice place, area of the city.
Right, beautiful,
Huawei,
yeah.
it's
Huawei is right here.
It's right here. So
It's
we
right
are
here.
we're in good. They are cool by
It felt really nice to me. I took some video. I come to a place. I'm in Dongguan. I live here for 17 years, and I go to and I see the Israeli flag right there, up there. It's nice.
It's nice.
Yeah, it's a good feeling.
And here there are some big private enterprises that invested. Because you see, there is a huge invention of money here.
Yes.
And what I like about this place that they think about the future, because when you're talking about innovation. The relationship between Israel and it's a long-term investment. When you talk about China and other countries, okay, it's sell and buy and sell. It's not the case in Israel. Israel is a small market. 9 million people. Here it's investment for the future, because what Israel is selling nowadays is ideas. We sell ideas and we don't sell products. And when Chinese invest in us, it's not that they invest in other countries that they buy, real estate. In Israel, and it's hard. They come and invest in a idea, in a startup. It's not easy. It's not easy for the Chinese market to do that. If you come to think about, most Chinese investments are something that you can touch.
Something solid, yeah.
Something solid. And in Israel, it's not the case. But I think that China understood the potential and the benefits that they can have by investing in Israeli companies.
Long term.
This is in long term, and this is something special. And this is something very unique, and it's.
What do you
difficult.
say? Maybe it's a hard question. What do you say about? There is a lot of investment from China in Israel, right?
Yeah.
They bought Nova, or is it Osem?
Nova a couple of years ago.
Right, they bought the biggest milk producer, and they're building some ports in Israel, and I don't know, tunnels, whatever. And some people are not so happy about that.
Well, it's a global question.
Right,
how much you open. I think that Israel.
No, but the question with Israel was
strategic.
Yes, they have ties with countries that Israel don't have ties with, and Yeah.
So I try. What we did, what we're doing with China, for example, they're building now the Tel Aviv subway. It's our biggest logistic project that we have. I think that Chinese as well understand the restrictions that we can have, and there are certain issues that we don't collaborate. Because Israel is also a very special country, we have a quite of a unique environment that we try not to rely on other countries because of our history, because of our experience. Therefore, I think that both sides here understand the yes and no's. And in terms of innovation, we have no limit to cooperate with Chinese parties or Chinese companies. It can be something of software, and it can be something like what you have here, that is something very that you can touch, for example.
Right. And it's innovation, but Israeli innovation, but in China, made totally in China, right? Developed.
A lot of countries around the world are kind of like falling in line with Huawei's 5G network. Is Israel one of those? Or
we are not there yet. We prefer to wait a little bit before we go into 5G. Israel, on one hand, is very technological advanced. On the other hand, not so much. For example, we are stuck in the payment with credit card. We don't have WeChat. We don't have e-payment. People don't like it in Israel, so we are stuck.
But in the US as well, right?
In the US, they have SMS. Come on, they don't use WhatsApp or WeChat. It's ridiculous, the Americans.
Right. It's even more
backwards.
But you mean as a country that's supposedly very innovative and everything,
we're not there.
But I think the innovation is inside here, in Israel.
Exactly. So 5G is not a big issue for us right away. For us, we have other preoccupations like big data issues. Israel is you're talking about before about the biological, the biometric passport. On one hand, okay, we accept it. On the other hand, we don't have, we're very individuals. Big data is a little bit scary for us.
Right. So what kind of, what can you tell us, like what's going on now with the relationship in terms of innovation or in Guangdong or all around China, between Israel and China?
So basically what's happening is that Israeli companies come here for two things. First of all, to get investments, because the Israeli companies, they are small, and what they need is capital to continue their elaboration.
So VCs, Chinese VCs and stuff like that?
VCs mostly, and especially here in Shenzhen, in Guangzhou, there is money.
Right.
And it used to be more in Hong Kong before also, and I think that Chinese understand that they can slowly changing, invest in startups, invest in the future. That's the first thing. Secondly, we need to produce. Israel is not a production site. We need place to produce. This is a great example. It's an Israeli idea or technology, but where we would produce it? In China.
Right.
That's the second thing. And the third thing is the market. Now, Chinese are really trying for Israeli companies to come here, but unless they give these three things, they will not come. And this is something that is very hard for us to explain, because sometimes you have this beautiful park. I'm sure that every Israeli company that will get here free room, free Wi-Fi. It's not enough. They will get the investment. It's not enough for us to come. I need the market as well. Okay, so this is the big challenge. But there are a lot of Israeli companies on high tech that are doing it. We have good examples. It takes time.
I'm interested in what you mentioned, that this particular industrial park, correct me if I'm wrong, is focusing basically on water treatment and water management.
And the environment.
Are there already projects in this aspect?
No, not yet, because it's again, it's not something that you see money immediately. And the south of China is not water is not scarce here, so it's
rain and water.
So it's difficult. It's more difficult to sell, but I think this is a long-term invention here, investment and thinking. Because it will get a problem. Because in big urban areas like South China, there is a problem of water already.
There's innovation in terms of water treatment in Israel?
Absolutely. In Israel, 95% of the water is recycled. 95%. From being a country that used to import water, we had in the
Turkey,
from Turkey, we had boats coming with water from Turkey.
We don't have water. We just
which you just didn't have it, and now we have. When we were growing up as a child in Israel, when you brush your teeth, let me give you an example. Do you turn off the tap when you brush your teeth?
Not in Colombia, not here in China.
Here, China. We do it. It's a basic thing for me.
Right.
I close the
water.
The water.
Right.
We were raised on that we have to save water.
Well, desert kind of. We are.
So it will arrive to everybody.
So that problem we had drove innovation.
Absolutely.
And
drip irrigation.
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't have enough water to use every drop. And it will arrive to everywhere, to Colombia, to China. The problem of water, they say that the third, fourth World War will fought about resources, about water. And you see a whole continent like Africa. There's no water. As simple as that. Look at Cape Town. What happened there a few months ago? There was no water. California.
No water for about 6 months. 8
No
months.
water.
I saw a show on Netflix about the avocado, in the world, and water is very, it's a problem.
Avocado is the green gold we call it now.
Yeah, and because of water, a lot of it because of water. You need a lot of
water.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing why I think about water is because this city has changed from a labor-intensive industry into a technology-intensive industry, and part of that was to deal with pollution. There was a lot of air pollution and water pollution, and they've done great things in that regard. Still a lot to do. We can't drink water from a tap, but
I drink sometimes. I do.
He's a brave. That's why the beard is so weird.
Middle of the night, I drank too much. I get up. No, I'm not going to the kitchen. But I mean, maybe I'm used to from Israel, and just a little bit. I think it's not gonna
living
go far.
on the edge.
But you said something about the Israeli companies coming here. They needed 3 things and everything. How about how much fear from copying them plays a role?
It plays a role. It plays a big role, and that's another. Today, to say copy, it's a little bit basic, but yes, the fear of the IP. But I think that the Chinese government is doing a lot of good work in the IP issues. I participate in 2-3 symposiums about it because they understand that it's a huge problem.
So if you do have a patent, you should be fine, right? Because you can sue. It's not what it was like the wild east.
No, you can sue, and it's easier, and you have a lot of support from the government.
Right.
Once the Chinese government went into it, they understood that it's people will not come. People will not bring their
right. Do you assist companies that have problems like that? Do you in any way in a position to assist them?
We cannot get involved into legal matters, but yes, we try to assist them. For them, no, not advice. For them to have a fair trial.
Okay.
Fair treatment.
Trying to help on that. Okay.
On that. For example, let me give you an example. There's a case with our neighbor here, the big company.
Okay.
And they wanted to do something on Saturday. So we explained that for us, and the lawyer cannot come on Saturday because it's a religious day. And they understood it. Then the court moved it to Monday, for example.
Okay.
Because for us, it's to have fair treatment. For example, if there is an Israeli or Colombian in jail, I will not, my job is to see that he's treated as anybody else that is not.
You can visit him just to see that, not to help legally.
No,
basically,
he has a lawyer. I can give him a list of lawyers, etc. It's my job to see that he gets, translation. That is, but I will not because Israeli. I will say immediately that he's, innocent or something like that.
Did you ever have a case like that?
We have a lot luckily, in South China, we don't have Israeli prisoners. So we're the good boys here.
Yeah. Quite a few Colombians, unfortunately.
I suppose so.
I think a lot of countries.
A lot of countries, yes.
Yeah. So, okay, other than water treatment and environmental stuff, I guess the regular Israeli talk, the set talk is like, okay, we invented this and that and cherry tomatoes and the USB stick and all of those things, right?
Yeah.
What other things like they do with China? Anything that you say? I
think that one of the.
I know that I hear that medicine is China buy medicine from Israel.
Biomed. Listen, one of the problems of that the world is going to face, it's third age. The population, and we see it now with the COVID. That especially in Europe, United States, in China also, the population is getting old, and we need more solutions. Not so much in pharma, but all around it. It's biomed. So there are a lot of Israeli companies that are doing biomed here. We have even a center called Bio Island in Guangzhou.
They make it here? They develop?
They develop
Okay.
it here.
Joint ventures,
Joint
this kind of
venture.
things?
Usually joint venture.
Okay,
Usually
okay.
joint venture because we have a lot to learn from the Chinese also. Biomed is a big thing. The health in general, it's a huge thing. Application APPs that has to do with health. Israel is very advanced in that. Another thing that is a big issue here now, it's the fintech, financial technology. So that's another thing that is very strong. So biomed, fintech are the things that are very rentable. Because if you get a nice thing in bio, you can become very rich very quickly.
Right.
And fintech as well.
I have a question in terms of where China stands in terms of electric vehicles. Is there any kind of cooperation with Israel? Is it an important development? Is it something to look forward?
First of all, let's be a little bit local, proud, because from February, Israel became the first country outside of East Asia that GAC, Guangdong company, the Guangdong company is selling electrical cars.
I saw that when I looked at your...
company.
So we are the first, and it's I think in BYD from out of Shenzhen is selling now buses, electrical buses to Israel. Yes, Israel was one of the first countries, if you remember, Better Space, that introduced the electronic stuff. We are selling, we are cooperating in different technologies for the electronic cars, batteries. There is a huge Israeli company, very known, like Mobileye, that is known for the auto driver.
that's
My
huge.
car has
driver.
that one.
Yeah, a lot of cars have that. Yeah.
So in Israel, it's obligatory for that. But going the next step, a completely autonomous car.
How
that
far
drives
are we
himself.
from that? If you
It exists. In Israel, Mobileye has 2 cars. So I accompanied several, presidents that arrive, and you see it in the back, and the driver start running, and then you push a button, and it start talking to you, and you are and it's on the highway. It exists. It exists. The problem is the infrastructure. How to make the infrastructure, and I think together with others, and the infrastructure of where to put the. I think China will be the first country to implement it, because if you see now the electrical cars, I think that China is number 1. In all of Israel, you have, I think, 30 or 40 stations where to, when you, which is ridiculous. Here you have 30, 40
in one garden.
In one garden, in a parking place. So I think that China really the leader in that. Israel can enter into several points, but I think nobody can compete with China.
A very personal question, because I drive an EV and it has this capacity. What is the limitation in terms of when? I mean, is it about the roads? Is it the way the roads are built, or just the interaction with other drivers?
The self-driving?
Yes.
It's the interaction, basically,
with other drivers.
With the drivers. Although Israel is very promoted because, Waze. Okay, so Waze is an Israeli thing, and we have it in our mentality. I think there is no other choice but to get there.
I forget that Waze is Israeli,
Added to the list of the...
someone bought them though, right?
Yeah, everybody was bought.
Skype or something, everybody was bought. They have a lot of...
Don't forget, the inventor of the SMS or the WeChat is Israeli. ICQ.
ICQ.
It's the first.
The messaging.
Oh, no, this is 1990 something.
Yes.
I was still in Colombia at that time.
Yeah.
I think we need to take a break. I want to talk a little bit more after this, but
sure.
Yeah.
Just one final question. Have you met the football star from Israel?
Eran Zahavi.
Yeah?
Of course.
Awesome. We want to meet him too. All right. So guys, we'll see you in a second. All right, guys. So we are continuing our interview. So we're talking about innovation.
First, we were talking a little bit about, I want to ask a little bit more about that. Israeli audience would like to hear about the Israeli star, right?
Oh, yeah, sure.
The Eran Zahavi, which he's the biggest Israeli football player right now, I guess.
He's the captain of the team.
Of the national team,
of course.
And he plays here for like 3 years now, right? And he's the all-time lead scorer.
Absolutely.
Of China's first league.
Yeah, they put in the Colombians to shame.
There must be Colombians
and the
playing,
Brazilians,
right?
and the Italians.
Yeah. Right. And you meet with him sometimes, or just?
I think that the amazing thing about Eran Zahavi, first of all, he's not the only Israeli player. Abdea also is here with him. That he's what we say the mensch. He takes his role very importantly because a football star is a role model, and
he's like an ambassador.
Yeah, and he's the real ambassador of Israel. Because if you ask anybody in Guangzhou or in China, name me one Israeli, they will tell you Eran Zahavi.
Right.
So I work for him basically. But I think that he proved, coming back here 3 weeks ago, almost a month ago, he proved that with his family.
Yes.
He proved that he is a real Cantonese. He's really here, and we are all waiting for the league to start. I hope as soon as possible, because people are getting crazy already.
Right. So he shows up sometimes for events.
I think that every time that Israel calls him to the flag, he will come. He does it, and I think that we are very proud that he's here.
And his kids are here.
His kids are here, going to school here.
Okay,
his wife is here. Yeah.
All right. Okay. How is your Chinese, by the way?
It will come sometime. Listen, a person has to know his limits. After the age of 50,
when you don't answer "Mama hoo," that tells me a lot.
Yes, I was thinking, say "Mama hoo." Iban ban.
I don't.
It's not. We're not very good, by the way. You think 20 years, 17 years, but no, believe me, for that amount of years, we need to be much better.
You could have been. To tell you the truth, I speak Hungarian very well because
Hungarian.
For 3 years I invested and I took. What do you do with it later?
Then you forget, right?
I was in Japan. I studied Japanese, and I can go to a Japanese restaurant now, and that's
yeah.
So and I, out of respect for my Chinese colleague, I will not even try.
Right. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about the, I think, another part of your mission here, right? So tourism between China, Israel. Recently, maybe 3 years ago, Israel was the 3rd or 4th nation in the world that signed the 10-year visa agreement with China. And I guess that's because we want to attract more Chinese tourists like everybody else.
Yes, absolutely. The Chinese tourists are good for the Israeli economy. Yeah. It's a different tourism that we're used to because most of tourism that comes to Israel it's a religious tourism,
Right.
And Chinese are more, evangelical, Christian.
So more like shoppers, or?
I think that the Chinese, first of all, Israel still is a different or exotic destination for them because it doesn't go into any of those cues. It's not European, it's not American, it's not African. It's different. It has everything, it has nothing. So it's a little bit interesting on a way. It has the Red Sea, the Dead Sea, which is
very famous.
Very famous about here. Good shopping and the diamonds. Israel. Number one export is still diamonds. So basically, the diamond industry in Israel is based upon Chinese tourism nowadays. So first of all, our visa is the cheapest one in the market.
You mean our Israeli visa is the cheapest one? How much is it?
Nothing, basically. Less than 100 RMB.
Oh, wow. US is like 1,000. Wow. For any country, you mean, or for Chinese?
So for Colombians as well?
Wow.
Colombians do not need visa to Israel.
Let's go.
So, and yes, the 10-year visa is more for business. Because...
you want to make it easy, right?
We want to make it easy. Visa shouldn't be an issue. I know. Another thing is that a lot of consulate, part of the budget is the visa fee.
Yeah.
I think for me it sounds unreal, unrealistic. So there's no tourism, you don't have a budget. It's
for Chinese to go to the US, it's not just the visa cost; it's the agent that needs to help them because they are really terrified they won't get the visa.
Prepare the papers.
So we here also, this is the only country that we have a visa center. People don't come directly to the consulate; they go to a visa center, but it costs another 100 kwai.
So you mean they people don't go to the consulate.
No, then there's no need. It's quicker to go through the
And
visa
it's
center.
anyone get it basically?
If they,
Not anyone, but I mean,
yes,
it's very easy.
It's not difficult.
Right.
Yeah. If you really see that somebody is bona fide, that he doesn't want to, because we have illegal we have a big problem in Israel with illegal immigrants,
Right.
also from East Asia. So we have to take careful. But tourism is important for us. We are working very hard on direct flights. So nowadays, before this pandemic, we have direct flights from Shenzhen to Israel twice a week by Hainan Airlines. We are hoping to have one from Guangzhou as well, from China Southern.
Right.
There are direct flights from Chengdu, from Shanghai, and from Beijing. From Shanghai, from Shanghai and from Beijing.
I did the Cathay Pacific. I did that.
Directly?
No, that's
Directly also.
Cathay Pacific.
So only from Canton, if you take in Hong Kong into consideration, we have more than one flight a day. So it really helps. We think that Guangzhou Airport, Bayonne Airport, could be a hub for Israeli going to Asia. So I think the market is bigger than only
You mean instead
China.
of Hong Kong? Instead of...
There's enough space for everybody. It doesn't have to replace somebody else.
Well,
but,
they probably need more help on that. Yeah.
So we see a lot of that. We cherish we really looking forward for the Chinese tourists.
How many Chinese people go to Israel every year?
Not enough.
That's the number.
Just before, like last year, do you know? Like
200,000, which is
200,000, which is not enough.
It's not enough.
What are some of the most touristy destinations, apart, obviously from Jerusalem, but what are the other destinations in Israel?
Basically, it's the Dead Sea, the Sea of Galilee in the north, Nazareth, and everything. But for Chinese tourists, also the seaside, Tel Aviv and Haifa. They come a lot. What we're trying also to do is to have a regional cooperation. Don't come only to Israel. You can go to Jordan. You can go to Egypt. Israel should be the hub, and we're trying to work with our neighbors to attract people. We do it a lot in other countries. In China, it's less. Chinese, I think they prefer to go to one destination and come back, and also the Chinese don't travel for long. Yeah. Their vacations are very short, so it's not one country usually. But we try to do this.
Do most of them go with the group? The tourist groups?
90%.
Right.
Still 90%.
Yeah.
Although the young generation, they travel alone. People in their 20s.
The younger one, 20s,
they travel alone.
We were talking last night about one girl that has traveled to 20 different countries.
I think they will do it more and more.
Yeah.
The Chinese young generation is
changing. But I think... And they're changing because usually one of the issues with the Chinese groups is they eat Chinese food. So you need to take them to... And the young, no, they want to...
And Chinese have, I would say that we have the good side of this racism. Jews in China. I mean, Chinese have a fascination with Jews. Even today, here, this floor, when we had lunch, I sat with two Chinese. They have an office here, and they didn't speak English. But they brought up the Talmud, right? So, which is, for us, it's a Bible thing. It's like, it's a religious thing, But, so they have a thing with Judaism that, what is that?
I think that there is, I believe, not only in China, also in Japan and Vietnam,
Japan
in the East, that they see the stereotype of a Jewish person that is relatively more, he studied more, he had more money, he's more intelligent. I always tell them, I wish.
I always say, you never been to Israel. How was not so smart?
But it's a positive thing, and I think that it's a positive thing. I won't
argue.
I won't argue with that. One of our biggest problems, as me as an Israeli diplomat, is to have the expectation level realistic.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they forget that we are 9 million, that's it. So everybody's saying, Israeli companies should come. How many Israeli companies we have? So the expectation level has to sometimes adjust itself. Like anything else in life, but also towards Israel.
Right. And So they go to Israel. I guess they may expect everybody's smart, everybody's businessman. Obviously, it's not.
One thing they expect is to be expensive, and it is expensive. Israel
is expensive. Yes,
very expensive.
It's expensive, but for a lot of Chinese tourists, it doesn't matter too much, right? All right. So what about Israeli tourists coming to China? Are there many?
Yeah. More and more, of course. And yes, you can see during Israeli holidays in April and September, you will hear a lot of Hebrew. Guangdong in general is not a touristic destination yet.
It's a business destination.
Right.
Business destination. Well, an Israeli tourist will go more to
Guangzhou,
Shanghai.
maybe. Not Dongguan.
Not even Guangzhou.
Maybe
No.
Guilin.
They will go to
Guangzhou.
Guilin maybe, or they will come from Hong Kong. But this is something that not only towards Chinese tourists, I think that Guangdong has to do a lot to because there is so much beauty here, and to attract more and more tourists here. A lot of Israelis come here more for business, especially to international.
To this area.
People always ask me, how many Israelis are in Dongguan? How many in Shenzhen, Guangdong, China? You know, I guess you also don't know exactly, right?
No, we don't have the. We have an
everybody.
estimation because it's not obligatory to register.
Right. What's your estimation?
And also, what is an Israeli living here? Because a lot of Israelis that are here are tourists that go every 3 months abroad.
Right.
Between 1,000 to 2,000 in Guangdong.
In Guangdong.
Yeah, that's my
That makes
estimation.
sense to me.
Yeah, that's my estimation. Depends on the time, but of course, if you during the Canton Fair, it will be much more. But on day-to-day basic, I think that the number of families is going down a little bit because the cost of living in Guangzhou
it's going up.
It's going up,
as well.
so it doesn't worth it to bring the family.
Do you think they're getting to a bit more difficult? The recent situation, right? A lot of eyes, a lot of blame toward China, and I argue a lot on Facebook. Being here for a long time, understanding China more than people that have never been here, obviously, right? Do you even go into that? I mean,
No.
you don't even go into that?
No, but let us be realistic. I think the world will change after the COVID.
Right.
The way we travel will change. The way that we source.
For sure.
For sure. No country will have to want to put their eggs in one basket. It's going to change. It's going to change, and it's going to take a long time until we see back the numbers of tourism, the numbers of international venues, and I think I'm very worried about, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, and Dongguan as well as a center for this kind of events. Canton Fair was cancelled for the first time in history.
Went online, right?
It's going online in June, and we are. And nobody knows how it's going to happen.
Right.
Yesterday, actually, we were in touch with them because we were supposed to have to be the invited country to now.
All right.
And
You
how
know
are we
how
going
it's
to
gonna
do it?
happen,
How
yeah.
do we do it? Do we have a booth, like a national booth? How much you pay for that? No,
online,
it's.
yeah.
I already
For a
asked
virtual.
for a virtual booth. You have to pay for it at all?
How do you know how many people? Is it going to work? Is it? Yeah.
If I have to convince an Israeli company to participate, they would tell me, okay, what am I paying for?
Right.
How many people? Maybe I can pay afterwards to see how many people clicked inside my booth.
Right.
That could be an option, but nobody really
that's
knows.
Wow. Very.
It's a huge.
Very
It was very easy to say, okay, we're going to do a digital
version of
version
the Canton
of the
Fair.
Canton Fair. But how do you?
How do you
do it?
execute it? How do you sell it? How do you promote it? How do you measure it?
Right.
That's the most important. How do you measure it?
So the world is, and China is center almost in many of these things. Is changing. Yes. I think.
How do you protect your IP if it is online?
Right.
I don't know.
You see it on camera, eh?
Right.
Let's just copy it.
No.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of questions. I don't know how we copy it, and I think that China will be the first one to tackle these issues and maybe to give the solution to the rest of the world.
But you think that the sentiment is a lot of people have a sentiment negative now with China.
Yeah, but sentiments change.
Sentiment change.
Look
Fear makes sentiment.
Look at Europe 100 years ago.
Right.
Germany and France were the biggest enemies. Nobody ever thought, and look at them now. I think these sentiments change.
But steps need to be taken for sentiment to change.
I'm sure for both sides. And look at Germany, Israel. It's not a comparison, but nobody would thought that Israel and Germany would be the best, partners that there are.
Yeah.
So once again, I think that the world will change. Is changing, and I hope that something good will come out of it. I hope so. let's wait.
Maybe we just finish it up with a question about your own future. What is there? Are there more countries that you want to be posted at?
Of course, I'm not, actually I really love it here, so I'm going to
stay for a while.
I'm going to stay for a while. It's a good life here. And in the future, yes, I did all continents, so I'm hoping to have embassy open in Antarctica, so I will have the last continent to conquer.
Yeah.
All right.
So, I also want to say that, I've seen different consuls. I've been in touch over the years in China. Israeli consuls are usually really helpful, and you've been very helpful recently, being very approachable for people, and it's a great, I hope every country representatives will help their citizens in other countries where they are as much as you do. So thank you for that.
All right. Well, again, thank you really, really from the bottom of our heart for taking the time to see us. We are trying to get the message out there about what it is like to live here in China, to do things in China.
People, right.
And this is a very high profile interview for us, so we really want to thank you for that. And well, with that, we want to remind you to please, if you like our content, make sure to subscribe to our channel. And when you do that, don't forget to hit the bell button to be notified whenever there is a new video out. Don't forget to follow us on our social media, which will be posted down here. And well, until we see you again, that has been, of course,
China. Thank you, Peleg.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
谢谢。